The first day of travel was infused with such excitement and enthusiasm that the communal buzz of conversation and joy was like a triumphant wave that we rode all day. Cars, planes, buses, it was effortless. Our arrival in Costa Rica set upon this class what seemed a surreal experience, one of, we've been waiting, and it's finally our turn. Day 2 of the trip has been rich with all of the resplendent warmth this country has to offer, and with the sun on our faces, we set off fully on our adventure. The morning began down a narrow city side street to meet Doña Melba, a woman of legend who has adopted and raised over 90 children in her lifetime, bringing each in from tragedy and wrapping them in her miraculous love. She shared with the group lessons of giving, of caring, and of compassion, all of which we will carry with us and use thoughtfully as our journey continues. Later, after a brief photo op at the world's largest ox cart and a visit to an artist community that fashions furniture in a hydro-powered factory, we made our way to La Fortuna and the educational farm project of the great Don Juan. This annual visit to Don Juan's farm is a joyful experience on a fully functioning organic farm designed for teaching, and the tour offers endless opportunity to taste many of the crops, for better or worse. As in life, sometimes you get a sweet citrus or a glass of luscious sugarcane juice, and other times you get a mouthful of spicy pepper. Following what is always a memorable treat for the senses, the day concluded with dinner at Don Juan's and settling into our evening routine of a class circle and an early bedtime. The strengths of this class have us perched on the precipice of a profoundly meaningful and enjoyable experience. They are thoughtful, intelligent, inquisitive, kind, sweet, caring, entertaining, and they love to make each other laugh. The morning brought with it a picturesque harbinger of the adventure and excitement to come, as the full expanse of the Arenal volcano shot up from just beyond our lodge into a glowing, cloudless sky. Energy and emotion poured forth from this group as they prepared for their day on the zip line. With multiple rides on a mile of cables strung up between two mountain ranges and aerial views of the rainforest canopy, the volcano, Lake Arenal, and beyond, this activity never disappoints. The thrilling nature of the experience was matched only by the deeply supportive nature of the class, as they conquered fears and cheered each other to victory at every turn. It was full-on adrenaline, screams, and smiles for hours straight, as the trek had us all giddy with joy, pride, and even some relief. After lunch, we hiked for a few miles through the wild cane, past recent forest growth, over lava rocks, and up to the base of Arenal. Along the way, we crossed off several Meadowbrook traditions, including a long stop at a termite nest to poke a few holes and try our hands at catching and tasting these elusive and apparently minty insects. We also took a group photo and had a brief sing-along atop the exact obsidian boulders that the Meadowbrook 8th graders have for a decade now. And from our guides, we heard riveting accounts of the Arenal volcano's giant 1968 eruption that they had learned from survivors of the actual event. Following the hike down, we took a surprise trip to a geothermal water park and then stopped in the charming, bustling town of Fortuna to shop for souvenirs, eat ice cream, and spend some time in the central square. Dinner was at a local organic farm where we made our own tortillas, ate heartily, and even sampled a little of their renowned coffee. What can be captured in words and pictures about this experience, we will share, but beyond that is something invisible that may only be felt in these sweet, mighty, and palpable moments we have down here. As Valentine's Day ends, we are traveling here with a community of young people who all know love, who have been given and shown it, who respect and appreciate it, and who will continually share and express it in all of their interactions with each other, with the world, and with themselves. Through all of the joys and all of the challenges we have faced thus far, and the many that lie ahead, we will approach all of them with that one consistent value: heart. We'll talk soon. The 8th grade had another exciting day in Costa Rica. We began the day hiking down to the bottom of La Catarata Fortuna, a giant waterfall rushing deep into the rainforest, one that conveniently has a great swimming hole just below it. While the water may have been a bit cold by local standards, for us it was like a casual dip on a perfect summer day, discovering those kind of rosy moments that seem only to exist in our youth or in the starry-eyed reminiscence of those not so youthful among us. The rushing rapids and deep pools provided an ideal canvas for this energetic, playful group to further paint their Costa Rican story with as lush a color palette as possible, splashing about in togetherness and shared joy. This afternoon, we traveled around Lake Arenal to a farm resort called Rancho Margo, which will be our home for these next 2 nights. Staying all together in the ranch's bunkhouse, a long, narrow, barrack-style building with bunk beds in particularly cozy-sized rooms, is always a highlight of the trip, and the combination of rain and close quarters has seen the group's tight-knit bonds shrink ever closer. Today's journey included a mile hike through the mist up a steep, muddy trail to an open lookout that provided views of the volcano, the lake, the farm, and beyond. Dinner was abuzz as always, as Costa Rica has relaxed our rushed routines into long, leisurely meals full of conversation, new and interesting foods, time to tell stories from the day and to reminisce on old times. This story is writing itself with a pleasant peppering of victories and happy endings, both large and small. And while the trip is never easy, this class is making it look easy because of the way they have chosen to embrace the fun, the challenges, each other, and every new thing they encounter, both outside of themselves and within. Thanks to everyone at home for making this possible. We will be home soon and with stories to tell, but we're not ready to return just yet. Good evening from Rancho Margo. We spent the entire day working on the farm, beginning with a 6 a.m. shift in the dairy, milking some feisty cows. Later, we toured the entire farm, exploring their hydroelectric power source, learning about all of the various crops, fungi, and microorganisms that are essential to the work here, and chasing and cuddling some very cute chickens and pigs. The class consensus is that there is nothing better on earth than a newborn piglet. We also spent hours in the fields planting, weeding, composting, and harvesting crops, and most of us have just finished scrubbing the manure from beneath our fingernails. Rancho Margo is experiential education at its finest, as students get up close and personal with every element of their process in an accessible and exciting way. We unwound after the day swimming and doing yoga in a beautiful lakeside studio and had a leisurely dinner. Tonight, we sat with Juan Sothsheim, the visionary owner and creator of Rancho Margo, for nearly an hour as he shared his life story, his dramatic move from corporate success to progressive farmer, his values, the purpose for his work, and his dreams for the future. As we approach the halfway point of the trip, we are becoming family, bright and exuberant, and in addition to learning and growing, we're just having a blast together. Tonight, we are resting comfortably in the cozy surf town of Puerto Viejo as the ocean churns beside our hotel and the waves pound the sand from a recent onslaught of stormy weather. Today began as it does on a farm, in the dairy with the cows, and soon after we said goodbye to our Rancho Margo bunkhouse and boarded the bus for the Caribbean side of Costa Rica. The bus has become like a second home for us, full of cards, games, naps, and today even an open mic where students traded songs and stories for hours. Slowly, we made our descent from the mountainous cloud forest and through the banana plantations and port towns to our next destination, a transitional home in the town of Guapiles. This home serves children who have been removed from their families for safety reasons, and we were eager to share the brightness of our hearts and minds with each and every one of them. In spite of our language differences and a tropical deluge, we quickly befriended the kids we met, from precious toddlers and energetic children to teenagers in stylish jeans and sunglasses. There is some indomitable magic that always happens between Meadowbrook students and this population of Costa Rican youth, and today was no exception. In a certain light, you might expect that the inequalities and tragedies central to these kids' lives would persist and echo from every corner of these homes, but childlike joy seems to ever supersede the darkness, at least for the better part of an afternoon. Our kids are naturals. They gave unselfishly of themselves in every way, and they worked so hard to make fast friendships, to entertain and to show care, thoughtfulness, respect, and love. They showed off their perfect mix of maturity and playfulness, and they were appreciated and adored. This is where the trip begins to take on a new level of emotional hold, as we transition from focusing on adventurous and environmental sides of Costa Rica to exploring some of the social issues, and most importantly, meeting people and joining their communities to share ourselves and to learn as much as we possibly can. I believe today marks the halfway point of our trip, but we've pretty much lost track of what day it is, what time it ever is, and are truly just living in every moment to its fullest. Today's visit to Pani Limon was one of the best days of the year, without question. It's in this place and in the glow of an impossibly touching collage of 1,000 moments that feels like the culmination of a Meadowbrook education and a golden display of our students' character. The class of 2018 did it all today, and everywhere you looked, there was love. They completed a number of impressive projects around the houses, including revamping the drainage system around the basketball court, painting a mural on new sections of concrete wall, replacing the rope nets on damaged soccer goals, transplanting tomatoes and planting several new crops in the greenhouse we built last year, painting a playhouse with kid-friendly colors and patterns, and also just playing with the kids who live there. It would be hard to fully describe what it is like to be a teacher watching our kids working with such a vulnerable population in such a sweet, supportive, fun, enthusiastic, and loving way. We are overwhelmed with pride. We are beyond impressed. And we are so grateful and inspired and optimistic for a future with these 8th graders at the helm. In every way, they gave everything of themselves, pushing kids on swings, cradling babies, doing puzzles, playing games, painting nails, and doing hair. Our kids have been shown love and known love, and this made it so possible for them to instinctively give it. They were so patient with the little ones who are often shy or sad or nervous. There was so much fun with the medium-sized kids, endlessly bouncing on the trampolines or hoisting the parachute or kicking the soccer ball. They were so great with the teenagers, working hard to champion through the awkwardness and both engage and befriend them while keeping an eye on the positive role modeling they could do. And in the quiet moments, I could only marvel at the intimacy of our 8th graders as they cuddled babies, and it sends me back to when they themselves were little. I can't believe how far they've all come and how fast it all went by. As I look at them now, sitting together on this warm Caribbean night, running their circle with profound thoughts and independence, I don't know whether to laugh, cry, or maybe both. The thought that our time together, both in Costa Rica and at Meadowbrook, is winding down is too much to imagine, but days like today show us all that they are ready for all that comes next. And while I know that day will come, I also know that I will never forget today. Good evening from Talamanca, the indigenous reserve that is home to Costa Ricans' native people, the Bribri. Today, we visited a small school called Meadowbrook that sits atop a small hill at the literal end of the road into the reservation. As the Caribbean sun burned through the clouds, it ignited the true colors of this region, stunning sky blues and the richest of forest and jungle greens. Working from mid-morning and into the evening, we transplanted a number of plants from garden beds built by the class of 2017, replanted a number of baby crops in their place, and built a roof to enclose this greenhouse and shield the young vegetables from the sun and rain of the upcoming season. We repainted Meadowbrook's first swing set, which was donated and installed by members of the class of 2015 and has held up well to the rigors of the climate. We mixed tons of concrete and transported it into a new addition that was being constructed off of one of the main classrooms. We repainted the Meadowbrook school sign and hung up some paintings done last year. Several woodworkers built a new door from scratch to replace one recently lost in a fire, and a dozen students sanded, painted, designed, and refinished all of the school's desks. It was a truly unique opportunity to jump into yet another culture, and especially one so remote, unique, and relatively unknown to the world at large. A short drive later, we found ourselves at a Bribri lodge called Ditsoa'u, an exciting 3-story structure that most resembles a giant treehouse, constructed using traditional thatched roofing and materials from the jungle that surrounds it. Ditsoa was constructed by a local tribal leader named Danilo, who has welcomed Meadowbrook students into his place and heart for years, and he and his family spent the evening cooking for us, sharing stories of Bribri life, and teaching us about this amazing culture. Danilo is a joyful man deeply committed to his tribe and who means the world to the Bribri people, and we were so fortunate to be able to spend such an evening with him as his guest. Everyone in our group is now fast asleep on giant open-air floors and tucked in on mattresses surrounded by mosquito nets. We are all the kind of tired only such a day's work can produce. If our trip was a boomerang, we are at its apex, and starting tomorrow, every step we take is a step closer to home. The joys of this experience cover most traces of missing our normal realities, but with each passing day, I can see in our kids that as they are growing up here, they are also growing fonder appreciations for what is waiting for them upon their return, and come Thursday night, we'll all be happily back in your arms. Our exploration of Costa Rican culture concluded today with breakfast deep in our tropical forest treehouse, followed by a short bus trip and a day hosting Meadowbrook school students at our hotel pool. It was the first time that we as a school have traveled with the Bribri kids, and playing in a swimming pool seems to be a universal language of youth. For some of the members of this indigenous population, it was their first time off of the reservation, and we were witness to some truly beautiful enthusiasm and excitement. Later, we all traveled to a wildlife refuge called the Tree of Life that is home to injured and rescued wild animals. There, we saw many different types of monkeys, some mellow and tame and some quite mischievous. We also marveled at the colorful birds, cute turtles, and a very sleepy sloth, just to name a few. As a heavy rainstorm lulls us to sleep tonight, we'll be looking forward to one more day of reflection and fun, and then soon dreaming of home. We may be weary and a little muddy, dusty, and damp, but we're going to keep going strong until that plane touches down in Boston, where we know you'll be waiting to carry us the rest of the way. Good night and see you soon. The final day of our Costa Rica trip has come and gone. We spent the morning at a beach called Playa Chiquita as each Meadowbrook 8th grader embarked on their solo. The 3-hour solo experience is one of the longest-standing traditions on the trip, where each student sits on a lone section of beach for 3 hours with just a towel and a journal. This solo allows time and space for each traveler to reflect, process, and work towards an understanding of all they've experienced. After a great morning, we had lunch at another popular beach and spent some well-deserved time playing together in the waves. The night's closing circle was, as always, one of the highlights of the trip. As weathered and weary as we may be, we are all full of appreciation for all we've been a part of, and there's a unique moment in time where the final walls come down and we are swept up in the wonderfulness of experiential learning with a class full of loving people. Upon our return from Costa Rica, people always ask me, "How was your trip?" And I always answer the same. It was great. But that's because I don't really know how to explain it. What I love about this trip is that it's everything. In 10 days, it's every emotion, every type of experience, and not just a small version of those things either, but intense ones. We have just done it all. We have been to mountains and jungles and volcanoes and farms and ranches. We swam in pools and rivers and waterfalls and water slides and oceans. We've eaten bananas from the tree, empanadas from the street, and drank sugar straight from the cane. We've laughed so hard we've cried. And we have just cried. We've been surrounded and swarmed by love at times, and others we've felt isolated and alone. We've risen and stumbled and risen again. Our bodies have been stubbed and bruised and scratched and cut, and our very resolve tested. We've been tired and broken and sick and in pain. We've felt weightless, we've floated, and we've come close to flying. We've seen beauty that knew no end, and tragedy that spurned any sense of fairness. We have seen the sun rise as we waded in the Caribbean Ocean, and we have stomped through mud and puddles in chill and darkness. We have been hugged and held and wronged and done so ourselves to each other. We have worn some of these clothes for longer than common decency would suggest is polite. We have had our friendships pushed and pulled in every direction. We've found a deeper sense of purpose through the children we've met. We've been to crowded cities and tourist traps and forgotten corners of ancient cultures. We've seen monkeys and vultures and jaguars and sloths. We never wanted to leave, and we couldn't wait to get home. We felt happy, proud, excited. We felt exhausted, scared, angry. We've given unselfishly of our strong minds and hearts and bodies for days, and we've also taken an extra cookie when no one was looking. We lost shirts and shoes and water bottles, but found shells and fruits and bugs and bats. Some days we worked longer and harder than we ever thought we could. Other days we quit when we could have gone on. Nothing was perfect, and it was never meant to be. We've made some mistakes. We tried our best. We made a difference. We made a mess. We said please and por favor and thank you and gracias. We said sorry. We thought hard about the future, ours and everyone's. We asked questions. We asked for directions. We asked for help. We pushed through. We persevered. We forgave and forgot. We took the show on the road. This is what we were ready for. It's what we wanted and needed. It's what we had been waiting for and a lot more. For 10 days, we lived our lives together. It was everything. Easy, hard, magical, crushing, everything in between. And that's what life is. Over 10 days, we saw each other's best and we saw each other's worst, and yet we're still here, still finding ways to laugh together. And that's love. You go through the best, the worst, and somehow stay laughing. Life and love. That's what this has all been about. But in a word, great.